This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
We just don't know. We make our best research, we come up with our best plans, but we don't know until the game starts how the game's going to unfold. And very, very often the market and or the things you encounter when you're trying to get something done guide you way better than you could have ever guided yourself.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is The List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kheifets. And today, I have the pleasure to host Ken McCarthy from thesystemclub.com, who is one of the founding fathers of internet marketing. He was a part of the original movement to commercialize the internet, and Ken's System Seminar is recognized as one of the foremost marketing trainings in the world. And the United States Patent and Trademark Office granted him the exclusive right to use the phrase "the system" to describe internet marketing education products. I picked up on Ken's work last year when a copy of the System Club letters came across my desk. I immediately recognized Ken as one of the good guys who walked the talk based on his deep insight into direct marketing, advertising, and selling in print. Ever since, it has been my personal goal to connect with Ken, and I'm excited about the upcoming call because I'm certain the founding father of internet marketing has some eye-opening insights for list builders. Ken, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, and I thank Perry Marshall for introducing us.
Oh yeah, he was very kind to hook us up, and I couldn't be more grateful because I've heard so many good things about you. Ben Settle, my personal friend and mentor, talks a lot about you, and obviously the System Club letters, they're just mine.
Thank you.
So in the System Club letters, you refer to lessons you learn from a gambler, because while business is not gambling, sometimes it is a gamble. Now, do you mind sharing your insight on this concept with our listeners?
Well, this is a very interesting thing to talk about. A lot of people think that gambling is just taking a reckless risk and just hoping for the best. And in fact, professional gamblers try to minimize their risks and in fact succeed in minimizing their risks as much as possible, sometimes right down to zero. Professional ones. Amateurs who just sort of, throw the dice and hope for the best, they might get lucky and might win the lottery too, but it's probably not a good path. So the question then is, you don't want your business to be a gamble. You kind of want to know what you're doing up front. However, even when you plan every single thing out and do every little possible bit of research you can, you never know exactly what the result is going to be. And I think that's just very important for people to go and know when they're going into business. That being said, one of the key skills in business is the ability to improvise, to react and improvise to changing circumstances, because business is nothing if not changing circumstances. You think you're going to go left and you discover that you really need to go right. And the people that survive and thrive and ultimately succeed massively are not the smartest. They're the people who have the most resilience and the people who are awake and the people who are ready to change their concept based on the feedback they're getting from the market. So you never know exactly what's going to happen. There's a great saying in warfare that the best battle plans become defunct after the first bullet is fired. Have plans. You need them. Have research. You need them. Have a strategy. Have tactics ready. You need all that stuff. But when stuff starts happening, then you have to be awake and fast on your feet. It's one of the most important skills in business. It's kind of hard to teach, but if you're out there struggling, maybe this is an area you need to look at. Maybe you need to be able to move faster and be willing to adjust. One thing I discover sometimes with people that are new at business is, we all have ideas that we love, our pet ideas, the ideas we've fallen in love with, and sometimes we stick with them too long when we should be adjusting based on the feedback we're getting from the marketplace. I'm not saying give up, I'm not saying quit, I'm saying be alert, be aware of what the marketplace is telling you, and deliver to the marketplace what the marketplace is asking for. which is actually the essence of business. So I hope I answered that one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more regarding improvising, adapting, overcoming. That's something me and my teammates were forced to do a lot in the last couple of years, especially when you grow and your company, your enterprise grows. You have to adapt all the time to the changes. And there's the challenges, of course, that come with the growth. And of course, every single little change now becomes more difficult the bigger you get. And so, as I was working with my coach, Tom Beal, one of the most common phrases on our weekly calls was improvise, adapt, and overcome. And the interesting part is that oftentimes being forced to adapt and overcome a challenge actually led to more growth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just don't know. We make our best research, we come up with our best plans, but we don't know until the game starts how the game's going to unfold. And very, very often the market and or the things you encounter when you're trying to get something done guide you way better than you could have ever guided yourself. So important to keep your eyes open, and also important to be flexible and be a little egoless. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we need to have strong sense of identity and faith in ourselves. That's very important. But we also need to know be able to detect which way the wind is blowing and be willing to face reality. And very often reality leads us to something way better than we ever imagined. So it's not negative that we have to adapt all the time, but it is a requirement that we have to adapt all the time.
So going back to the concept of business isn't gambling, you also share in the book, The System Club Letters, 10 concepts which are parallel between business and gambling. Now, without going into all 10, of course, there's one I'd like to kind of focus on here and get your insight on. And this concept says, and I quote from the book, "It's a simple fact that the less you brag about something, the more it sells." Now, what does that mean?
It's very, very interesting. People, let's see, in our world of entrepreneurial marketing or entrepreneurial-based direct marketing, you see a lot of people advising or giving as examples really sort of bragging over the top letters. Use the old sales letters, and there are cases where that's useful and it works. But you always have to take the temperature of the market that you're in. Some markets, they're so noisy and they're so full of claims and super claims that the only way to be in that particular market may be to make wild claims. Eugene Schwartz explains all this brilliantly in his book, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but it's Breakthrough Advertising. He talks about how markets evolve. You have to evolve your style of presentation to them. However, as a general overall principle, if somebody's pushing too hard, if they're building themselves up too much, if they're bragging too much, if they're going on and on about how great their product, it's better to hopefully you have a great product, and it's better just to reveal the product and just show people how it works. Gary Bencivengo, who I think objectively was the most successful direct mail writer of his age, which would have been the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s into the 2000s, and he was the most successful based on result, on the amount of money he generated. He said the best possible sales presentation is a demonstration. In other words, here's this great wordsmith. He was famous for helping pioneer the Magalog. He had 64-page sales letters. He was the king of kings when it came to writing ad copy. But he said, look, at the end of the day, if your product is good and there's a way to demonstrate it and just show how good it is, no words, no high claims, just let people see. People are way more impressed by what they see with their own eyes and what they discover themselves and what they figure out themselves than what you ram down their throat. So I guess the point is, obviously, you want to present yourself and your business and your product in the best possible light. But if you're over bragging and triple exclamation points, if you read, for example, the classic amazing letters of Gary Halbert, Gary's thought of as a guy who's kind of an amazing persuader. But when you actually read his letters, they're very calm. His sales letters are very calm. They might have a colorful, dramatic headline, but the actual copy is just, here's the facts. Here's the story. Here's what it's all about. If you read the great sales letter written to sell the book, The Lazy Man's Way to Riches, that was a book that everybody should read. You should definitely read the ad copy for it. It was sold by a one-page ad. The guy sold millions of copies. This was something that you can't do these days, but in the era that he was, you could pull that off. But anyway, when you read the ad copy, very calm. He just tells the story, and you as the reader kind of connect the dots and go, wow, I really want in on this. If you think of a party, if the party, has a red velvet rope and, there's doormen in tuxedos and everything's very sedate and quiet and some people are being turned away and some people are being allowed in, they don't have a flashing neon sign that says, hey, this is the greatest party ever, triple exclamation point, you should be here. Nobody would believe it. But when they see, oh, look how attractive that is, look how appealing that is. When they discover with their own eyes, that's the strongest sale that you can ever make. So when you can present your product that way, that is a great way to present it. And the reason I bring this up is very often new copywriters, people that are new to the whole art of direct marketing, think that, the more bombast, the more, wild-eyed claims, the better. Not necessarily. Tell your story clearly, cleanly, with plenty of vivid detail so people can visualize what you have to offer, believe that what you have to offer is true, and they'll fill in the bragging for you.
And this is a really amazing tip here, because this is exactly what I've done when it comes to breaking through the noise, if you will. I stepped into a very noisy marketplace, which is the internet marketing game, people wanting to learn how to make money online. And now, my company sells advertising, lead generation services, sales funnels, education on traffic generation, list building. And so the one thing I've always been proud of is that, you do need a loud headline, either a loud positive headline or a loud negative headline to get attention. However, the claims in all the sales letters, as I was taught by one of my copywriting mentors, Ross Bowring, they were always toned down. And the more I hyped it up, the more Ross kind of just thrashed my copy and told me to rewrite it with a toned down claim, because no one really believes that. And I believe the letter you mentioned, one of the greatest letters, in history, I believe, Joe Carbo's The Lazy Man's Way to Riches, I think it starts with a damaging admission. Is that right?
I think you may be right. I don't have it at my fingertips, but yeah, he's not, grabbing you by the throat and saying this is the greatest thing ever, you have to buy it. He's giving you the pros, the cons, and kind of lets you make up your own mind. Obviously, he's guiding you very skillfully to make up your mind the way he wants you to make it up, but he's definitely not doing it through the bombast, which is a great word, bombast. And so this is a temptation of especially the new salesman, the new copywriter. We think we have to push so hard. What we really have to do is be very clear on first of all, who our reader is. That's probably 95% of the game. Who is going to be reading this letter? Where are they at? How do they think? What do they believe? What do they don't believe? And then forming your presentation so that it's easily accepted, understood. Clarity. This is not a very sexy thing. But clarity in writing is very important and very rare. And if you read Joe Carbo, if you read Gary Bencivenga, if you read Gary Halbert, the great, great, great copywriters of all time, you'll be amazed at how simple their language is. They are no pyrotechnics, no fireworks, just person to person telling the story as simply and as clearly as possible. Another great writer in that venue, along those lines, and he's not a current writer. He's an older writer, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. But he wrote. He was actually the ghostwriter on how to make friends and influence people. He was also the ghostwriter on how I raised myself from a failure to success in selling. These books have other people's names as the writer, and they were essentially the person with the ideas. But it was this copywriter that actually wrote the copy in the book, and then wrote the ads as well. And I'm stalling for time because I'm trying to see if I can remember his name. But he wrote a book called How to Write a Good Advertisement. And anyway, the big point of all this is when you read those books, and if you can find the ads for those books, again, simple, clear, direct language. No crazy claims, no triple exclamation points, no all bolds, no all caps, just the facts. Told in a clear way. So don't ever underestimate the power of just simple clarity. But the clarity has to be, one, your customer, how they feel, how they think, what they're looking for. And number two, your product. How your product satisfies your particular customer base. And then once you have those two things under your belt, strive for simple language and clarity of expression. People don't realize how many readers they lose by getting fancy with their language. Everybody, this is a really important concept for copywriting. Everybody is reading a sales letter with two filters. One of those filters, I'm just going to use the expression, bullshit. It's like they have a filter, and every time they see something that's a little bit, hard to believe or a little bit stretched, their little bullshit alarm goes off. You lose massive credibility when that alarm goes off. If it goes off 3 or 4 times in a paragraph, you might have lost the reader. The other filter that people have in their mind when they're reading is the so what filter. In other words, you can't really afford to be boring at any point in a sales letter. Every sentence has to have a function. Every sentence has to have a purpose and has to move things forward. So, and again, if the so what alarm is going off while somebody's reading it and they're like, well, this doesn't apply to me, or this isn't, how does this benefit me? They shouldn't be asking those questions. They should be absorbed in how it applies to them and how it benefits them. So I found it always to be a helpful way to edit my own copy. I've got my bullshit filter on, and I've got my so what filter on. Anything in my letter that makes the bullshit filter go off or the so what filter go off, I edit it out.
Well, you mentioned a couple of great concepts, and I just want to circle back to make sure our listeners kind of, write those down at least and go investigate once they're done listening. So, but before I do, I think the author you're referring to is Victor Schwab.
You got it. Thank you. Not where I have my books, and I just forgot his name. But yeah, Victor Schwab. He's an old school guy. I mean, he's definitely not on the seminar circuit, never was. He probably passed away in the 60s. But I think he's one of the best copywriting educators ever. I think his book is magnificent, and his examples of writing, they just tell the story of how to use language to engage people and then persuade them. Remember, attention, interest, desire, action. If you don't keep their interest throughout the entire letter, and that means sentence by sentence, you're not going to get desire going, and you're certainly not going to get any action. So this clarity issue, this relevance issue, this no ridiculous bragging issue, these things are really important. They're not glamorous. They're not sexy. They're not like, oh, here's the secret technique. You can use this ninja technique to overcome anybody's resistance. No, it's not that at all. It's just this sort of workmanlike attitude that you take towards your letter, really checking out every sentence. And is this plausible? Is this going to make people lose, belief? Is this going to make me lose believability? Is this not relevant to their interests? You have to be kind of ruthless. And, writing, I always say, is 20% writing and 80% editing. And I think with writing ad copy, it's even stronger. Definitely throw everything on the page, hold nothing back, go wild, but then edit like a surgeon, like a general. I mean, because you really are a general going into battle when you're writing a copy, when you're writing an ad. And so as you're reading your own copy, think like a general. Like, can we go there? Should we go there? Should we take the troops there? Should we go around? How are we going to get around that obstacle? Gee, we're kind of exposed here. Let's cut that out. Ooh, that's a little bit weak. Let's strengthen that. Sentence by sentence, line by line. If my copy is good, it's because that's how I edit my copy. I read it and read it and read it and read it and polish it, get rid of every sharp edge or hole I find. And that's, a sales letter is never done. At some point, though, you have to finish it and send it. But you really need to I think the average copywriter would benefit tremendously from spending a lot more time polishing, getting the rough edges off the letter than most do.
What would be your advice to generals with no real world, in the trenches battle experience?
Well, I think I look back to the first sales letters I ever wrote before I even knew there was such a thing as ad copy. I had a little business. I wanted more customers. I thought a lot about the benefits that I offered a certain group of people. And I made sure that I had those benefits explained clearly in my ads. I had a 2-step process, which everybody probably knows, but it's worth repeating, is you run an ad to generate a lead, and then the real advertising, the stronger advertising, the longer advertising comes in the second step. And so I had flyers, this is way back, pre-internet, way back. And I had flyers, and the flyers would generate a phone call, and when somebody called, I'd get their name and address. I'd talk with them, of course, which was very beneficial. And by the way, copywriters should really talk to prospects. The greatest copywriter, one of the great copywriters of all time, Claude Hopkins, people seemed to neglect the part of his book where he said before he would try to sell anything, he would, by print, he would try to sell it live to 100 people. He said that, and everybody kind of like just glosses over that. Gary Halbert was a door-to-door encyclopedia salesman. He learned a lot about how you have to tread carefully when you're presenting anything to strangers, because they're skeptical and they get bored easily. So he learned a lot from that. So if you're a beginner, we're all, if we're smart, we're all beginners. Anybody that wakes up in the morning and thinks they know how to handle everything perfectly is really sadly mistaken. So I wouldn't focus too much on the fact that you're a beginner. I would focus a lot on your prospects, and I would focus a lot on your product. And then in my copy, I would focus a lot on you're basically building the bridge between your product and your prospects. And I would just take a workmanlike attitude towards it. Am I being clear? Do I know these people? Do I know what they want? Do I know what they need? Do I know what they respond to? Do I know what they react negatively to? And do I know my product? Do I know all the ways it helps people? And am I expressing it clearly in my advertising? And that's what I'd focus on, not the fact that you're a beginner. Because really, honestly, truthfully, if I start a new project, and I'm starting new projects all the time, I am a beginner again. If I'm smart, I'm not assuming that I know anything. I'm assuming that there's a market out there for me to learn and get to know better and better and communicate with more clearly and more persuasively. And then it's an ongoing evolutionary process. It's not like, I know everything, so it's going to be easy. That's a sure way to blow yourself up.
The more I interview great copywriters and great direct response marketers. So we got you, I interviewed Perry, interviewed Ross Bowring, my mentor. I've had Daniel Levis on the show, John Carlton, going to be speaking with Brian McLeod. So the more I'm talking with you guys, the more the common thread comes up, which is know thy customer, right? Know exactly who is that person you're working with, who is that person you want to influence, what are they looking for, what are their insecurities, what are their fears, desires, emotions, etc. Without it, there's really no copywriting in the first place, because it is all, the spotlight is always on the customer, and it's less about your product and not even close to being anything to your skill set. It's really about your prospect, and not so many different bells and whistles that people try to put on copywriting these days by producing software and different things. But if you strip it all down to nuts and bolts, it really comes down to, do you know the person on the other side of your screen, or on the other side of the phone, or behind that door you're gonna knock on? Do you know them? And if you do, if you have empathy, if you're able to understand exactly what it feels like to live their life, to walk around their shoes, I don't think you'll ever have any issues with selling or marketing anything to these people.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of the situation, and that's why talking, if you have an occasion, or you can create occasions to talk with your prospects, you can create them and listen to them. Gary Halbert had an amazing piece of advice. He said, let's say you're a car dealer or you have a store or something, just get a little small tape recorder and keep it in your pocket all day while you're selling, and listen to it. At the end of the day, you're probably saying some very effective things. You're probably saying some very ineffective things, and those will jump out at you as you kind of listen critically to your conversations with the prospects. But as important, you'll hear what the prospects are saying. And this is something that's just overlooked by I would say, 95% of the copywriting world. It's all about ninja tricks and jujitsu, mental jujitsu and all this. But that's the wrong end of the stick. That's the wrong way to be approaching copywriting. It really is, okay, who are these particular people? What is this particular audience? How do I connect with these particular prospects? It's all in the specifics. There's general principles, of course, but I always say this, if you find anybody who's making money, the reason they're making money is they know a specific market very, very, very well. They may have no education. They may have stopped school at age of 10. They may even be illiterate. They may know nothing about world affairs. They may never have heard of Claude Hopkins or Victor Schwab. They may not know what direct marketing is, but if they know their market, whatever that market is, they know it really, really, really well. That's the gateway to making money in the world of business. It's not general intelligence. It's not, having 1,000,001 tricks. It's just knowing what the heck's going on in the particular market that you want to be in. So there are general principles, and I read these books over and over again because it's just great refreshers and great to keep putting you back on the right track. But when it comes to specifically making money in a specific situation, I need to know, just as you said, who's on the other side of that phone, who's on the other side of that computer screen, and that's where the money comes from.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. List Builders, the forefather of internet marketing, has spoken. Go and get to know your customer. Ken, thank you so much for taking the time. Guys, before you go, make sure you get the System Club letters on Amazon. Just go in and type in the System Club letters, Ken McCarthy. Also, make sure you visit www.thesystemclub.com. I believe you will find this to be not only refreshing, but truly life-changing. Both if you haven't yet made any money online, and if you're already making money, I'm sure Ken can show you a way or two to start multiplying your profits. So Ken, I just want to say again, thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure, a personal pleasure, to be quite honest with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me, with List Builders, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
Great, thank you, Igor.
Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is the podcastfactory.com.